Здравейте, аз съм Ева Мария Райкова, а вие сте с предаването на вестник Сега Опозиция. Наш гост днес е Майк Помпео, американски дипломат, политик, бизнесмен и адвокат, който е служил като 70-ти държавен секретар на САЩ в администрацията на Доналд Тръмп. Към днешна дата господин Помпео е председател на консултативния съвет на компанията Linden Energy, която придоби 50% от акциите на Овергаз. Mr. Pompeo, thank you for doing this interview with us.
It's wonderful to be with you. Thanks for your time today.
Can you explain what is the purpose of your stay in Bulgaria?
Oh, I came here for a couple things, but the most important one was to make clear that Bulgaria and Europe need to move away from Russian gas. And we can see the pain and the suffering that's caused as a result of a history of reliance on Vladimir Putin and the gas that comes through Газпром and Russia. And we know there are other solutions that are environmentally friendly, and we ought to, together, the United States and Europe and Bulgaria as a potential hub, work on this problem together.
As you know, Ovергaz and Sasha Donchev have been advocates for a liberalized and free gas market in Bulgaria. Do you have any thoughts on how Bulgaria can resolve this matter?
Yeah, every Bulgarian needs to understand that they will be better off if the markets here are free and fair and open. Competition lowers price. Competition creates diversity of both suppliers and for customers. That it is that very openness, that transparency, so that you can see what's taking place. Energy decisions should be based on market conditions, not on politics. And so it is very important for the Balkans, for Bulgaria, for all of Southern Europe, and indeed all of Europe, to get that element right.
At the moment, Russia is using Газпром as a weapon. And do you think it's realistic for Europe to get away from the Kremlin's grip?
Oh, 100%. When I was a Secretary of State, we worked on this. I'm working on it now as a private citizen. It is absolutely realistic. It won't happen overnight. It won't be instantaneous. But there are so many things that can be done. First, you can do some of this yourselves. There are reserves, natural gas reserves here in Bulgaria. We need to recognize that fossil fuels are going to be around for some time. We should all do what we can to reduce carbon. We should work on these new technologies. But what the people of Bulgaria and the Balkans and this region need most is affordable energy. This may well be an incredibly difficult winter, and the decisions, the political decisions that were made, by the way, some of which were made in the United States by the Biden administration to reduce the capacity of America to ship this product across the world as well, those decisions will impact real people, real families, real small businesses all across this region. And so we need to begin foursquare on multiple strands of activity that can ultimately do what you described, what you asked, to separate from allowing Vladimir Putin to use energy as a tool, as a weapon, as a coercive force against freedom-loving people.
You mentioned President Vladimir Putin. You met him. What was your impression of him, and what can we expect from him, not only in Ukraine, but internationally?
Yeah, I did spend a fair amount of time with him. My impression was he was incredibly determined. He was savvy. He's a former KGB officer.
Yes.
Completely in control of his nation, with a deep commitment to the objective he's made clear. And I think for a long time we doubted. Europe and even in some in the United States doubted that he meant what he said. He said that the greatest tragedy of the 20th century was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. We sit here today, the day that Gorbachev passed away. A man who was open to ideas of perestroika and glasnost in ways that Putin is certainly not. Putin told us what his intentions were. His intentions were to build back greater Russia, for lack of a better term. There's no indication that he has ever wavered from that intention. The question is, what will he be capable of, and what will the West do to prevent him from achieving that objective that would be fundamental change in the way so many Europeans live? We can't let that happen. Putin is determined to do that. We collectively need to be equally resolved to prevent that from happening.
You mentioned the tough winter that is coming, and every dollar paid to Russia is spent on the Russian war machine. My question is it moral to do business How business and ethics can work together in this situation?
My experience has been, I was in business for most of my life before I entered politics. My experiences was that business success and ethics almost always ran hand in hand. Look, someone can be corrupt and make some money for themselves, but that is often short-lived. Your question about how do we make this transition, is it moral in the interim to do the right thing in the short term for your country, is a complicated, deeply complicated question. And every leader will have to make their own decision, but every leader should know that they'll be held to account for the decisions that they make. The ethics, the morality, the decency of the decision they make will be important. And I can say for certain what I know about how to approach this. Whether one makes a decision tomorrow to make a purchase that funds the Russian war machine is different from if they on that same day made a plan for a week from tomorrow not to have to confront that again. And so there's things we all do in a crisis, in distress, fair enough. But one should always be building to make sure that you are never in that place again. And this is what I'm worried. I'm worried that the Europeans will do the wrong thing, underwrite the Russians in the short term, and fail to do the right thing in the near term and medium term, is to prevent them from ever having to suffer that again.
That's an interesting point of view. Let's talk about Bulgarian politics. Several people were sanctioned under the Magnitsky Act, but nothing really happened to them. What else can be done in order to fight corruption more effectively here in Bulgaria?
So ultimately that's a decision for the Bulgarian people. The U.S. Magnitsky Act is a tool we've used. I watched it during my time as Secretary of State. We might get it wrong from time to time, I suppose, but it is not used as a tool of American morality and an American legal process without a deep review and a careful understanding. We don't use it very often. And so it's the case that I hope every nation will consider a designation by the United States under the Magnitsky Act as a serious matter, one that the United States takes seriously, and consider that as strong evidence that this person has engaged in a set of behaviors that no country would want to approve.
And my last question is, are you still tempted by politics, and will you run for president in 2024?
Yes, well, I've answered all of your questions, so I'm not going to answer this one, other than to say this. I'm still very involved in the conservative causes that I've been working on most of my adult life. And so I'm still engaged in helping candidates be successful as a political matter back home in the United States. What I'll end up doing and whether I'll run for office again, only the good Lord knows.
Mr. Pompeo, thank you once again for this interview. А нашите зрители могат да следят сайта на вестник Сега, както и печатното издание.